This is TWiT.
All right, we are back from the break, and I am very excited to be joined by the prolific and wonderful Scott Stein of CNET. Welcome back to the show, Scott.
Hey, great to be back on. Thanks.
Yeah, so you once again got your hands on some awesome hardware, which means once again, boop, 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 I came up to the email bucket and said, please join me on my show. And thankfully you said yes. I was very excited to see that Valve had a bunch of announcements. And again, very excited to see some photos of you using the new hardware. Starting with the Steam frame, you've been focused a lot on the VR, AR, XR space. Tell us about what initially struck you about the Steam frame, what it is exactly, and when you put it on. How does Valve position this VR headset when it comes to some competitors like the Meta Quest and the Apple Vision Pro?
Yeah, it feels right now, and I've been covering this for a long time, but it feels like there are a lot of VR headsets and a lot of glasses, more than people are probably asking for. And so I think it's interesting because you go, well, what are these really being used for? And the Quest is low price. That's one of its advantages, and it's been fun. But it still is not a necessary thing for a lot of people, to be sure. I think that the Steam frame is interesting because Valve is kind of fusing this with Steam Deck. They are making this proposition that it's not just about VR, but it's also playing games from your Steam library, regular 2D games. And it seems like a lot of them, although it's going to be on an ARM processor. So this is the first time that Steam's been on an ARM processor, which is them kind of kicking the tires on what games could be compatible, what could you do. And so I felt like it was like a handheld meets VR headset. What I got to see, it was very much Quest-like. It was fun. It didn't quite fit my glasses perfectly, although hopefully they'll make slightly wider foam pieces for it. Mm-hmm. But there are also prescription inserts, and we don't know the price. So the price really factors into how much value is in this, because you have things right now going from $300 for a Quest headset to $3,500 for the Apple Vision Pro, which Apple does not call a VR headset, but it is technically that plus mixed reality. And so that is where we're at, and Valve is not going into the high-end mixed reality AI game. They're going into we want to play fun games and work with the stuff you've got game.
Now, can you tell us a little bit, because it's sort of a unique controller design, right? What is it? How does it enable playing VR, but then also traditional Steam games? That's interesting.
Yeah, and the controller's really one of the interesting things about this, because they put the standard control setup on this. Like D-pad on one side, 4 buttons on the other. Then you got your triggers, dual triggers, and things that are more like an analog sticks, which are on other VR controllers. First thought I had with the D-pad was, what happens when you have a VR game that uses buttons on this side, and will the D-pad feel weird? But that's a trade-off. But it does mean that you could play all the games that would be on your regular game controller equipped library, because the button mapping should be the same. The only thing they left off were the trackpads, which are on the Steam Deck and also on the new Steam controller. They didn't put those on, but you got every other button on there.
Nice. Now, according to the specs and what you've talked about here, the Steam frame uses Valve's new 6 gigahertz wireless protocol and offers, this word is always just funny to me, foveated streaming. How did the technology actually perform when you tested the PC VR games like Half-Life Alyx? And then what's the difference between it and standard Wi-Fi streaming? Because they're really hyping this, it seems.
Yeah, they really are. And it looks like a protocol. Like a lot of what Valve's doing is something that they're promising will be possible, not just on their hardware, but across other PCs and other devices, maybe even other VR headsets. You need that dongle, though. And so first, the wireless thing. You can already stream wirelessly with VR. Steam has that already over Wi-Fi or other connections like that. So the quality varies. The point they're making is they wanted a super reliable, high bandwidth way to do it that wouldn't be dependent on your Wi-Fi network. So it's kind of like those plugs that you would use to play with a mouse or a controller, like a dedicated dongle, but for wireless. The foveated streaming is there's another technology called foveated rendering. And in the world of VR, I've been seeing this for a while. There are eye tracking cameras on the VR headset. And what it's doing is it's keeping track of where your eyes are looking, only drawing a box invisibly of that and putting the highest resolution rendering there. And like when your eyes look around, you're not actually seeing a lot of high detail outside of your fovea around all this part. And it's like a magic trick. So it looks fine and you never notice it. And foveated rendering is for graphics, so to do more on a smaller graphics chip, but they're trying to do more on smaller streaming bandwidth while still playing the game on your PC, which is interesting. I mean, I kind of thought this would already have been here in the VR landscape, but VR doesn't move as fast sometimes as I think it would.
Yeah, that is interesting. And the difference between the two that you would have, I guess, the potential for both really. So the Steam Frame, that's one bit of hardware, but Steam said, we've got more. There's a Steam Machine. You use the Steam Machine. Of course, we'd love if you could start by telling us a little bit about it, but then tell us about the performance inconsistencies that you experienced. Which of the games kind of ran well and which had issues? And what did Valve have to say about the optimization timeline?
Yeah, so I mean, the box is really cool. It's it's small. It's 6 inches, I think, by 6. It's a cube looks smaller. It is smaller in general than the largest Xbox. It's easily game console sized. It's something that looks more like a thing you put next to your TV, which is what it's meant to be. And Valve has done this before. A decade ago, CNET was looking at the Steam Machine technology that Valve was also talking about putting in front of your TV, and that didn't work out so well. It was obviously much earlier days. The idea here is that it'll be good enough graphics wise, and that it'll play games well on a TV. The thing that Valve is touting here is they said that they've been learning a lot about how to optimize games on smaller graphics from what the Steam Deck does. Now, I am impressed because the Steam Deck really does play a lot of games really well that you wouldn't think would be possible. And that conversion magic is what's given them this edge and kind of changed the shape of what handheld game systems can do. Now, can they pull that off on the Steam Machine? When I played it, they were definitely showing a lot of super graphically simpler games, like 2D types of games, and maybe play Balatro and things like that. But of course, those you can play those on your phone. Some other games looked okay, Cyberpunk 2077, but some games like Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, which should have played really smoothly, it looked like it was having some graphic slowdowns. The team, though, was mentioning that my demo was so early in this. There were only a handful of us that were at the headquarters, and I think it was one of the first demos of the multiple days. They said that there may be future graphics updates in these, and then also a lot of the optimization that Valve's trying to do with this, not to defend them on this, but I think they were saying that the library capability with like Steam Deck kept changing over time, and that we're still like this is not coming out till 2026. So it's hard to tell from what I demoed how well games will play. But I think the expectation would be that this is not going to be bleeding edge graphics gameplay. This is going to be something, in maybe even less than what some pro consoles can do. I don't really know. And, how good that is and how much that costs.
Yeah.
Is everything. The graphics horsepower they were touting was 6 times the Steam Deck, which is a weird metric because that's a gaming handheld. And, that's not like what you'd want to compare to a PC. And it's hard to tell based on like the chip specs, which I had in my story. It's hard to tell what that will all be. Will it be like a gaming laptop? Will it be like this? And people are already curious about that. But I do think what it is that I looked at the whole ecosystem idea here. It's like instead of getting a new game handheld, you've got this VR headset, this game machine, and this new controller. And you're like, well, what are all of these and why do I buy them? And it seems like they're exploring basically how to get Steam games everywhere outside of your desktop PC, like on smaller things, in front of your TV, and make it more competitive with mobile and where consoles going. And I'm sure the hardware that they make for this is going to keep evolving too, and that other companies are going to make. So I think I saw it as more as the infrastructure, even more than the individual products. But for sure, they're making these products next year.
Okay, that's interesting as this sort of ecosystem, right? One thing going back to with this device, the Steam controller, this is supposed to have some improvements over the original. Do you feel like you noticed these changes? Is it more for a sort of a pro player to realize what the difference is here? Or is it maybe just a matter of over time, you'll come to feel like these changes have an impact?
I really like the controller. I thought it was, great, but there are so many control options out there. I think people will have controller and keyboard and mouse preferences when they play these things. What I think is really cool, though, is that Steam Deck really nailed a lot of controls really well on the handheld. And I think as far as a statement on gaming handhelds, they provided so many different ways to play it with the trackpads and the thumbsticks and the rear triggers and, kind of just every option I feel like you could kind of want. And what's nice is they just put that set of controls on a separate controller. So the idea is that you would also use that if you put a Steam Deck connected to a TV, you could use the Steam controller because you can't detach those Steam Deck things from the side like a Switch. And that's really useful. That's just like a basic, good, useful thing. The wireless, again, using a custom wireless dongle for that is nice. Again, the idea is that they want all those things to like not tax everything else and how it's connected. Again, I'm curious how much it costs, but everything about it felt really good. They also have people who like nerd out on gyro aiming. It has like the ability to like tilt and aim, and you can put your fingers on the top or underneath and just lightly touch them and activate gyro, and then like untouch them. So there were a lot of like, I think there was a lot of flexibility to it. It was not the thing that immediately excited me about the visit, but it was like another part of, to me, it's another play to say, they kept saying you could use this and this or this and this, and you could kind of use all the products together. The question is how many of them would you want? Would I be just picking up a Steam frame, or would I want a Steam machine and a controller, or am I getting all three? And, and I think that was an interesting, like when you have three different options at the same time or three different parts of a system, your mind kind of works like that.
Absolutely. Lastly, I think it's time to talk about the fact that pricing hasn't been announced. These are supposed to be launching in early 2026, which if I checked my calendar, that's beginning of this coming year. What is your sense of where these devices are going to need to be positioned to succeed? And then my second question is, of the hardware that you saw, kind of which one had you the most excited about its potential, or that maybe you would be most likely to purchase of what you saw?
I mean, the thing that's like the Scott Stein product would be the Steam frame. Like the thing that's like, sure, it fits in my zone. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in how it would travel, how much it would feel like a real handheld for your face. That being said, I already have so many other options with playing things, and so I'm curious, and I think the Steam machine is great, but if it's really good at playing all the games that I want it to play, and as opposed to would I go for an Xbox, or could a PlayStation outperform it? Price-wise, it's a good question. I mean, everything's going up in price. So, we're at a time where things are getting more expensive already, and there's a lot of creep from tariffs and everything else, tariffs, and you're getting to a point where stuff can cost $600, $700. Like the Xbox Ally handheld has two configurations. One is $1,000. So I think it's tough if this price creeps too high, although the storage configurations that were listed had a broad range, like either 256 at one end, I think it was like 2 terabytes. So I'd be hopeful that it would get into a console or VR headset competitive range, which could be whatever. To me, that's like, I feel like $500 ish. But I think if the prices go too high for all these components, then you wouldn't pick them all, and then you'd have to pick and choose. And I don't know if they want you to think about bundling them. So there's strange math with that. But again, I think what's also happening here is that, like I said, I think they're testing waters with like new ways for hardware to work. Mm-hmm. And so, the thing that makes me kind of hopeful about price is that Steam Deck actually was pretty competitively priced product. That actually has been it goes up to the higher end, but it can start pretty reasonably. And I think that's where it would need to be. I think there's no surprise that Steam Deck became popular because of that. Because you think, oh, I'm going to buy this. It's fun. These are fun things. They're not necessary things. And so I think there's a lot of curiosity about no price and how you evaluate things in that vacuum.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today after doing all this work. I hope you're able to get some rest soon.
I'm working on it. Get rid of my ear infection. Yeah.
If people would like to follow you online and keep up to date with the great stuff that you are always working on, where should they go to do so?
Thank you. You can follow me on Blue Sky. You can follow me on Threads. You can follow me on CNET always. I also have a fun newsletter I'm doing for myself just called The Intertwixt on Beehive. If you can find that, it has a lot of my floaty, tangly thoughts each week about the stuff that I'm seeing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
You enjoying this tiny taste of Tech News Weekly? I'm happy to hear it. You can check out the full show on our website, twit.tv/TNW, or you can watch it right here on YouTube. Just click the link below.